morning. My name is Addie. Please join me in an opening prayer. So this I know. I know with full certainty and clarity that right now, this is God. God is expressing in perfect form and perfect thought in this moment in each person here. I know that I am a part of that divine essence that flows through each movement, each motion, each stillness. And each energized morning, each energized Sunday, each incredible experience of community and communion with the divine source. And so on this morning, I declare that this day is blessed because I know it is, because my consciousness declares it is to the law that only says yes. And I know this for each person in this room and for all on this planet. And with great gratitude for this center, for the teachers, for the wisdom that is contained in this room, I release my word knowing that it is the truth, as together we say, and so it is.
Well, good morning again.
Morning.
Nice to see everyone. So today the topic is faith. When we talk about our teaching, we often talk about it being a practical spiritual teaching, and I believe it is. And when you think of practical, quite often you think of things that are easily accessible, that are easily understood, that maybe are linear in their nature. You know, for example, we teach that our power, your power, my power is within us. Your power is within you, my power is within me. That we access the greater power of the universe, the one mind or spirit or God, within, although we see evidence of it everywhere. We don't seek an externalization or an external way of achieving our goals, because we see the world primarily, the primary role of the world around us as being mirroring back to us what we project out into it in terms of our own understandings and our feelings and our ideas. But when we get to faith, which is a part of our teaching sometimes, that's one that seems a little difficult to see as a practical idea, because faith, no matter how you talk about it, has to do with believing or accepting something without evidence. And how do you do that in a practical way? Well, one of the answers is that we see faith as something that is built up over time, that you use faith in an experiential way. And when we understand the mechanism of how creativity and how creation occurs, which is by means of that which is already created largely, you create your life, co-create your life out of what's already here. You project your own understanding and beliefs at any given time into the world, and the world mirrors them back, and we tend to operate from those that what we call our current reality. Our current reality is simply that which we have accepted at this moment. It will change because you'll have different beliefs about certain things tomorrow. If I do my job well, today. Where you will see something in a new way or a different way that will automatically change how you interact with the flow of potential or energy flowing through you, and you end up with a different result. You know, in layman's terms, you change your mind about something. One of the things we talk about in our teaching is to use your mind in an affirmative way to imagine something that you desire that isn't already in manifest form, and to project into that a belief and acceptance that, yes, that is now manifest in my life before it shows up. In the Bible, it says, pray believing you have received and you shall receive. Now, how do you believe you have received when you haven't? That's a tough one. How do you get to a level of knowing that something is in your life when your senses say it isn't? Let's say, oh, you'd like to have more money. Would anyone like to have more money? Okay. Fellow over there. Now, what that teaching in the Bible says is that if you would like to have more money, you have to pray believing you have more money. But I don't have more money. How do I believe I do have more money? Isn't that lying to myself? You know, we all have really good analytical minds, and we have our questions. And when I say let's say I'd like to have my soulmate find me and find that person. And that hasn't happened yet as far as I know, let's say. And so you would imagine having your soulmate in your life, and what the teaching says, when you get to the point where you can believe that and accept that fully, then it will manifest. But what about if I have a doubt kind of wedged in there a little bit? Anyone ever had a doubt? Okay, yeah. What if I have come to accept the idea that if it's up to me, I'm screwed? And I would really like to have some external being that would take care of this for me, that can see more than I can see, or would accept more from me than I can accept for myself. You know, there is an appeal there, right? Because I was thinking, if it was up to me, wouldn't I already have what I wanted? So this idea of faith kind of jumps in there. So what faith is, as I think about it, faith is the bridge between you believing something and you knowing something. Because in order to really fully have something new come into your life, you have to know it's yours. Know it. The only way to know something, it says right in our Science of Mind textbook, the only way to know something is to experience it. So how do I get to the level of knowing without the experience if it takes the level of knowing to have the experience? This can keep you up at nights. Pray believing you have received and you shall receive. How about if I just pray believing I'd like to receive? I get what I pray for. I'm still in a state where I'd like to receive it, which necessitates it not being there. So if I pray believing I'd like to receive it, my prayer is answered, I still would like to receive it. Some of you will get that later. Some of you won't. So faith is when I can accept that it's mine, but I haven't had the experience, there will be a gap between the level at which I accept it and the level it takes to get to the level of knowing. So if the gap is this wide, I need this much faith. If the gap is this wide, I only need this much faith. See? So if I have, say, this much faith and the gap's this wide, I got to work to get the gap closer. Or I can work to expand my faith. So let's look at what faith is. Jesus had some things to say about faith, and again, this is the image of Jesus, if you weren't here before, that archaeologists believe he would have looked like as a typical Semitic person of that era living in that part of the world. Okay, not your everyday picture of Jesus, but we strive for accuracy here. So he says, now this is from Matthew chapter 21, where there's a story about, you may have heard a parable about the mustard seed. He says, you didn't have enough faith, Jesus told them. I assure you, even if you had faith as small as a mustard seed, you could say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it would move. Nothing would be impossible. The faith of a mustard seed. Now, That's not a whole lot. A mustard seed is pretty small. I don't know if you can see it. It's right there. I'll put a little red. Oh, the red thing's not working. Oh, yes, it is. The faith of a mustard seed. Now, when you think about it, there's a couple things we can get from this. Number one, mustard seeds aren't really that incredibly intelligent. They know how to do one thing. They know how to grow a mustard plant, we assume. We all know, so it's not like they've ever built a library or anything, right? So we know that we have more intelligence than a mustard seed, at least in potential. We may not be acting upon it, but we have the potential of, although we can't grow a mustard plant, can we? As ourselves, we can, however, plant the seed. So what his point is, it's not a lot. On the other hand, the mustard seed only has one thing to do. Propagate. As what? As whatever you are. You can say that about any seed. Any seed contains within it the intelligence to become the manifestation of its potential, and only that manifestation. So the mustard seed, no matter how much it might want to, couldn't grow a carrot. There's probably all kinds of mustard seeds in therapy about that. We don't know for sure, but I suspect. It's not going, oh, I wanted to be a carrot, I'm only a mustard seed. So it just has one thing to do. It has within it the intelligence to do it. And the only thing that has to happen is it has to find its way somehow into a creative medium. Soil. It needs to land in something that will nurture it in its transformation from a seed to a seedling. And then it has to have the nourishment necessary, water and other stuff, for that to happen. There's another mustard seed parable in the New Testament where Jesus says you cast your lot like a mustard seed, where some of you just throw a handful of seeds carelessly. Some of them might land on a rock and they won't grow, or some of them fall into the river and they don't grow. So only the seeds that land in the right place grow. And the point of that parable is to be careful where you put your wisdom. Make sure you're putting your ideas into the proper place. But in this particular parable, he's talking about faith. And he says, then Jesus told them, I assure you, if you have faith and don't doubt, you could spend a lifetime on that sentence. If you have faith and don't doubt, you can do things like this and much more. He's talking about moving a mountain. You can even say to this mountain, may God lift you up and throw you into the sea, and it will happen. Now here Jesus may have been exaggerating just a little. Although, we have put mountains into the sea since then, right? Was very unusual, wouldn't have happened in those days, but we developed the capacity to do that, to move mountains just by building the equipment big enough to do it. And then a woman who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years came up behind him and touched the edge of his cloak. She said to herself, if only I can touch this cloak, I will be healed. Now, Jesus isn't even directly involved in this situation. Okay, he's talking to these people over here, and this woman kind of sneaks up behind him. She's got this whole mental construct going on in her head that if I can only touch his cloak, I will be healed. Jesus turned and saw her. And he didn't yell at her for sneaking up on him or anything. He just said, take heart, daughter, your faith has healed you. And the woman was healed at that moment. Now it's important to, I don't know if this actually happened or not, but there's a lesson here that speaks to healing or any kind of change or transformation that occurs in our lives. Because you can use the same process to go from a good place to a not so good place. But what happened was she, the woman, who had this affliction, whatever, you ever had an affliction? convinced herself that the way to heal this affliction is to touch the hem of this guy, Jesus' garment. Now, Jesus had a little reputation. He had a rep, When he'd be out there walking around, he had his entourage with him, and they'd be coming down the street, right? And he had the beautiful, the seamless garment, which was kind of special. And the word was, if you see this dude, you can get healed. Now, there were lots of people walking around doing that in those days, by the way. That was kind of a little industry of Jewish mothers who were convinced their son was the Messiah. It's true. There were dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of people doing what Jesus did, according to the Gospels. But he had this special garment, which, would indicate, basically they're saying, even among those doing this, he was set apart. There was a recognition, there was something authentic going on here. So she, without any connection with him, any contact with him necessarily, other than seeing him, you ever get this sense that if I can only do this, I know this will happen? I know this will happen? And what does Jesus really do? He notices that there's somebody tugging on his garment, and he turns around, and he doesn't say, I'm going to heal you, does he? He says, your faith has healed you. It's like a done deal before Jesus even noticed. Now, she then it says the woman was healed at that moment because she wouldn't accept the healing without the outer authority. Part of her belief was that Jesus had to do it. Jesus wasn't thinking that way. He's like, it's a done deal. Don't worry about it. Oh, gee. And then when she heard him say that, she could accept it. But he's saying, I didn't need to say anything. It was already done because of what you did. Now, you can find similarities in every healing listed in the New Testament, where Jesus basically says, good for you, you developed the faith, you're healed. And all Jesus was doing was like going around, he was like a newsman going around acknowledging something. The newsmen don't create the news if they're good newsmen. They're newswomen, news people. They report on it. That's basically what he's doing. He's reporting on a healing that occurred because of something within her consciousness. So where's the power here? Now, these ideas, these stories have been taken out into the world. Oh, by the way, I love this. It says, I cannot help you, for I'm just a cookie. Now, if you've ever been to a Chinese restaurant where you get a fortune cookie, right, or you get them in the, how many times, come on, be honest, have you said, oh, let me see what the fortune is, and there's part of you saying, this is serious. There's another one I have, it says, disregard previous fortune. I'm just a cookie. See, it speaks to our folly when we project our power out into the world, to another individual, to an idea, to an organization, to anything other than recognizing that all anyone outside of us can do is lead us to our own truth that is already self-existent. So what faith does is allow me to have the ability to extend my belief toward that idea of knowing. The faith of a mustard seed. A mustard seed just simply has the faith of not questioning what it is. Simple as that. What if you just didn't question whether or not you could have what you desired? What if there were no doubt or no fear or no questioning about it as you did your treatment work, your prayer work, your affirmation work? If you just did it knowing that what I'm doing here is the same process as if I switch on a light switch, I'm activating a circuit that will inevitably lead to a consequence. When I flip on a light switch, I'm activating a circuit, I'm completing a circuit that already exists that will turn on the light. And I'm surprised if the light doesn't come on. So what is the degree of faith I have when I flip the light switch? I just fully expect the light to come on. That's what it does. Well, what if I could have that faith in my prayer work? What if I could have that faith about my soulmate, or if I could have that faith about my prosperity, or I could have that faith about a physical healing? That when I flip the switch, which is to do the affirmative work in mind of words, images, and feeling, to create a new belief, that I would accept that belief at the level that would take it into manifestation. You know, you don't have to flip a light switch 25 times to get the light on, right? Matter of fact, if the light doesn't come on, flipping the switch more times doesn't do much, does it? Okay, light didn't come on. Let's say it takes about 15 times usually to get it warmed up, you know. But sometimes it takes 15 or 50 or 500 times to do an affirmative prayer before you have that breakthrough. Why? Because your faith is only this wide, and you got to get the belief all the way down right up against that knowing before there's enough to bridge it. So what if my faith were like much wider? And what is this faith I'm talking about? Confidence in the process. That's all. I have faith when I flip a light switch that the light will come on. That's nothing extraordinary, is it? You know, you're not like a unique individual if you expect the light to come on and you're surprised when it doesn't. Wouldn't that be fun? If, you know, life would be kind of cool if it was that way in a sense. Let's see what happens when we flip this switch. Oh, the lights came on. You know, that would wear out after about a week, I think. Oh, the car started. Who would have thought that that's what would happen when I put the key in and turned it? Yeah. No, we know better. So what happens? We build up an experience of what to expect. There is a time in your life, if you just came out of a Stone Age tribe in the jungle and we dropped you down in the middle of this room and flipped that light switch on, you'd be amazed. And appropriately so. But after a couple of times, you'd say, oh yeah, that's what happens. I've learned to expect that because of my experience with flipping on light switches. But what about doing the kind of I would call it psycho-spiritual work necessary to create a transformation in your life, to move from a level of being to a greater level of being in some aspect of your life? Well, maybe we all haven't had the level of experience of success with that would make us feel relaxed enough to just say, well, now I'm going to go deal with this issue. So how do I learn to get faith in my prayer work, in my affirmative work, the same way I learned to get faith in the light switch? I keep doing it, and I look for the results. And when the results become consistent, I will naturally move into a place of saying, yeah, that's what I expect. But when I do my prayer work and I get the result I desire and I'm surprised, right? That means I don't have the faith yet. That's okay. But if I stay at that place of being surprised, I will be able to manifest less of what I desire. And it will tend to take longer. I cannot help you. I'm just a cookie. No one outside of you can really help you to the extent of doing for you what you need to do for yourself. Sometimes we need the outside because we have decided that that's where the power is. So the woman that crawled up behind Jesus needed to touch that garment because she had decided in her mind that the power was in Jesus and it would be transferred to her. And the sign that that is true is in the story, he had to turn to her and say, you're healed, before she could accept that she was. He didn't say, I'm healing you, did he? He doesn't say that anywhere. He says, you are healed because of your faith. There's another place where there's a man that can't walk. He says, get up and walk. Your faith has healed you. In other words, you're already healed. Just accept the healing. But sometimes we need the external person to tell us about it before we'll accept it. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? We need permission to be okay sometimes because we don't trust our own word to ourselves. When I was a supervisor back in Ocean City, Maryland years ago and had summer cops every summer, and it was just chaotic, funny, you name it. But anyway, there would be a lot of, what's the term? A lot of personal fear about, am I being enough? You know, am I doing okay? A lot of lack of confidence. And I had a particular officer who always come to every day and say, am I doing okay, Sarge? Am I doing okay? I said, well, you got your uniform on, got your gun, you know, you're alive? Yeah. You're meeting minimum standards. And he, you know, and I would just kind of kid with him, and I realized after a couple of days of that, he was serious. And if I said something that he would interpret as not being okay, he would take that to heart. He had given me his power. And fortunately for him, I decided to use that power wisely, to try to support him and try to help him to regain it. You ever give your power to somebody that didn't use it wisely? That told you were not worth anything and had no potential or whatever it would be? And you believed them because you had given them your power? You can't really give them your power. You pretend to. So if I've got that lack of self-confidence in my ability to manage my own life, it's going to be difficult for me to use this teaching effectively. I want to be able to trust somebody else. Somebody, you know, I want to go to a teaching where I can trust the priests and the ministers who are the ultimate authorities and, you know, and all that. They'll tell me what to do. I won't have to worry about it. Except every now and then they do something that kind of is a little off-putting and disappointing, and I lose my faith in them. Then what do I do? What do I do when I lose my faith in the government to take care of me? Or my parents to point me in the right direction? What do I do then? If I've already decided I can't do it. Martin Luther King said, faith is taking the first step even when you don't see the whole staircase. Now, you know, it's an interesting metaphor. You can picture that. It's an interesting image. Why would I do that? Why would I take the first step when I can't see the whole staircase? Well, I would only do that if I had enough confidence in myself to deal with whatever I encounter going up there. Or maybe I just given up on everything else. What the hell? Which is not a bad place to be, by the way. Because what you'll find is, as you go up that staircase, that you probably have what you need to handle it. Can I take the first step even when I don't know where it's leading? Can I live in the mystery, is what he's saying. I need faith to live in the mystery. What am I having faith in? Well, what am I having faith in when I flip the light switch? Well, I'm having faith in the law of electricity and whatever contractor installed it. What am I having faith in when I go forward into the mystery is I'm having faith in what we would call law or principle. I'm having faith that this principle works, it works in a predictable way, and I can trust that. It's no different than the quality of faith or trust I would have in the light switch. That's the thing that we often misunderstand. We think it takes some kind of extraordinary faith to believe in things spiritual. Nah, ordinary stuff. Because what is the difference between spiritual stuff and non-spiritual stuff? It's all spiritual stuff. It's all an integration of spirit and form, or spirit as form. No difference. And if you're here, just check to make sure, pinch yourself a little. Are you here? Physically? If you're here, you must have what it takes to exist in this environment. And what does it take to exist in this environment? It takes a consciousness that will direct power, potential, power, whatever you want to call it, life, through your being into experience. So you are a directing, channeling mechanism for power into experience, and you are a combination of intelligence and form that is designed to do that. The thing is, we will tend to only do it up as far as we can see ourselves doing it. And if I have a limited view of myself doing that, I will tend to hold myself back and restrain. So faith can be that which leads me to a bigger idea, to the acceptance of a bigger idea, not only as possible. It's not enough to think of something as possible, although it's necessary. We also have to own it. Think of it as done. Pray believing you have received, and you shall receive. Ernest Holmes says, I live in the faith that there is a presence and power greater than I am that nurtures and supports me in ways I could not even imagine. I know that this presence is all-knowing and all-power, and it is always right where I am. See, that's the mustard seed sitting in the soil, fat, dumb, and happy. Trusting that that soil contains everything necessary to help that seed actualize its potential. It does. The mustard seed doesn't sit there saying, God, I wish I was in different soil. Or maybe there's better soil somewhere down the street. Right? It accepts the relationship with that creative medium, and it simply does what it does. Our problem is we're a little too complex. We have the capacity to question. We have the capacity to analyze and overanalyze and overanalyze. And we have the capacity also to say, well, if I can't figure it out, then I'm not going to allow it in my life. Well, if you only allow in your life what you can figure out, you're not going to have much. Because there isn't much we can figure out, really, when you think about it. We don't even know how our eyes see. We know that they do, but we don't. Nobody knows how. Nobody knows. You know, we talked about the light. Well, you turn on the light. Well, the light. Yeah, the light. Nobody knows how a light works. Edison didn't know how a light worked. He just played with a bunch of stuff until he got light. He never fully understood how in the hell that electricity becomes light, and they still don't. They just know it does. So what does that tell me? What if I waited to accept lights in my home until I could figure out how they worked? Well, I'd be living in the dark half the day. Right? But I don't have to live in the dark because I don't have to know exactly how it works in order to use it. I don't have to know exactly how mind works to go from spiritual idea to manifestation in order to use it. Or to trust it. And yet I can put myself into all these metaphysical quandaries. You know, I don't know that I should really have this in my life. I'm not sure how I can manifest, so I'll ponder on it. I live in the faith that there is a presence and power greater than I am that nurtures and supports me in ways I could not even imagine. That's a pretty good affirmation. In other words, I trust the process. I can't, suppose you had to analyze how you got to be the way you are. I mean, total package. Physical, emotional, mental. There's no way you could do it, right? There's no way you could figure out all the different thoughts and all the different feelings you had in your life that got you to the consciousness you currently have. There's no way you can figure out how your body is put together without taking it apart and breaking it. And yet, you use your body. Same thing here. Carl Jung says, faith, I don't believe, I know. Now, sometimes when you say I know, it doesn't mean you really know. It means you're willing to know and accept that at some level, this is a truth. And at some level of me, I know it's a truth. And what I may have to do is suspend my disbelief long enough to let that belief work. See, what the mustard seed has going for it is it doesn't have disbelief. Doesn't have the capacity for disbelief. We do. But we need to use that wisely. I don't believe, I know. And again, remember, the faith is the bridge from the belief to the knowing. That's last week. So what we're talking about with faith here is very simple. When I say I would have the faith of the mustard seed, it's the same level of faith I have when I switch on the light, the same level I have when I turn the key in my car, assuming I trust my car, the same level I have when I ask you a question, I expect an answer. That's all. Every day walking around faith. Nothing extraordinary. Nothing beyond the regular acceptance that what I'm doing when I use my mind in thought and creative intelligence is to activate a potential that already exists through a system that was designed to bring it into form, and that I am the perfection of that system unfolding. And if there's something in my life that I desire that I don't have, the problem is not faulty wiring. The problem is I'm probably for some reason not willing to accept it as my truth. And I can look at that, and there may be a good reason that I'm not consciously aware of. Or it may just be I don't have the faith in the process. I don't have enough faith to get me from where I currently believe to where I need to know. Dr. Holmes says in one part of the textbook, you demonstrate based upon the experience of demonstration. Well, how do I get started? You know? Well, you get started the way people get started here when they come to class and everything. You learn how to do treatment, you do your affirmations, and you're just coming and you share, guess what happened to me this week? Like it's a big surprise, and it was a big surprise, and it's wonderful. Great, have another surprise next week. Have 2. Have 10. Until the point where you're surprised when it doesn't happen. Then you know your faith is the faith of a mustard seed, which is simply to expect things to work the way they're supposed to work. The problem we have sometimes with faith is we think it's something way up here and we aspire to it. I can't have that much faith. When really you've got that same faith in 95 other areas of your life. And it's just a matter of taking that same level of understanding, acceptance, and belief and bringing it into this one. And that's what we're here to do. So I want you to have fun with this one this week. When you find yourself struggling or in a difficulty or something like that, I want you to go into that space and say, okay, where do I think my belief is? Where do I think the knowing level that would take me to accept this, and how much of a bridge do I have to build in faith? And just see yourself narrowing that distance down and expanding the faith so that you don't have to do all that work to get so close to it. See, the nice thing about having a broad level of faith, you can get halfway there and you're there. For those of you that like shortcuts, this is one. Build your faith to the point where you don't have to get so close to knowing before you can make the jump. You can make the jump just by thinking about it. People that have a high degree of faith, that's what they do. They just expect the good to come. They don't have to spend a lot of time focusing on the good. They decide what they want and expect it to come because they've got that level of faith, and it makes the leap. Every time. So treat for more faith. Affirm greater faith. Know greater faith. Recognize when you do the little things every day that you fully expect it to happen, that's faith. And you can take that level of faith and bring it into other areas of your life as well. And have fun with it. Don't make it a job, make it a joy. Thank you, and namaste.